I'm Bob Ross, and welcome back to the 18th episode of Neuroassessment Painting Techniques. Certainly glad you could join us today. Now my editors are going to go ahead and run all the colors you'll need to paint along with us today at the bottom of the screen, and while they're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and let you know what I've got going on up here. So I just have my 16 by 20 inch canvas. It's all set, ready to go, so let's get right into it. So today we're going to be painting the Wong-Baker assessment tool. Now there's a few ways to paint this. The official Wong-Baker tool doesn't use any color, but we're going to paint it with color here just to make this a little bit more fun tutorial. So while we're painting this, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about this assessment. This was first designed to assess children's pain for children ages 3 and up, but today it's used all around the world for people of all ages. It just works especially well with children because it's easy for them to understand the faces on this scale. The goal of this assessment is to assess someone's pain so that we can work on pain management with them. So this assessment tool is not as reliable or valid as some of the other tools we've gone over so far in this series, but what it does have is a lot of face validity. And that's especially good when you're working with children. And just because it doesn't have high validity or reliability doesn't mean it's not a good assessment. It just means you have to know how you're using it. So in order to use this, you have to explain to the patient what it is. You have to explain to them that these faces represent a person that's in no pain, a person that's in some pain, or someone who's in a lot of pain. This technique takes less than a minute, and the only thing that you need to administer it is the Wong-Baker scale itself. So next we're going to talk about how this applies to OT. Now if you'll remember that little book that we all have, our occupational therapy framework, you'll find pain in there, and you'll find pain under sensory functions, which is under body functions, which you can find under client factors, which is one of the domains of occupational therapy. So that's how this assessment tool is connected to OT. The first mistake that people usually make is trying to just look at a person's face and judge what their pain is at. You're not allowed to do that with this scale. And the reason that you're not allowed to do that is because this is a self-assessment tool, meaning that the patient needs to be alert and conscious, and they need to understand what the tool is asking in order to use this. The next mistake that people tend to make is that they try to use this to assess something other than pain. You can't use this to assess emotional or mental state because it was designed to assess pain. So that's all that this tool is authorized for. So some of the strengths of this assessment are that it's very quick, it's very easy to understand, it's very cheap, you don't need a lot of tools, all you need is that Wong-Baker assessment tool, and you can find that for about $2. Very inexpensive. Another one of the strengths is that it's easy for children to understand, and it can also be useful if there is a language barrier. So some of its weaknesses are that it does give you very limited and specific information. You have to make sure that you know what it's assessing when you use it. Another one of the weaknesses is that children may misinterpret these faces as emotional states. Now there's a few ways that you can interpret this information and use it. The first one is that we're just going to go ahead and get an idea of what that person's pain is at. And then once you get an idea of what their pain is at, you can run through some activities with them and see if their pain gets any better or worse. And another thing we can do is see how their pain is changing over time. We'll go ahead and add our little faces on here as our last step. It's a pretty simple assessment tool to use. I hope you learned something today. And from all of us here, I'd like to wish you happy painting. God bless, my friend.